In our last video, we discussed how players hunt whales when a whale is found in the sea deck. Today, we're going to be talking about what goes on in between the hunts, how players manage their crews, and deal with the daily challenges of life at sea. Again, keep in mind that we're playing on a homemade prototype deck, which in no way reflects the quality of our final product. Okay, let's begin. Our crew has been sailing for a little while and have just successfully taken a right whale, with Caleb landing the killing blow. Caleb has 3 sailors, Ahab, Fadala, and the Manxman, and 40 barrels of oil. Tom has 2 sailors, Ishmael and Queequeg, and 10 barrels of oil. Jess has only 1 sailor, Bildad, and 30 barrels. Caleb passes the measure to Tom. It is now Tom's turn. The measure, representing the great measure of grog handed round in chapter 36, denotes turn order outside of the hunt. Since Tom has only 2 sailors when he begins his turn, he may draw a third from the sailor deck at no cost. These mariners can't stand to see an undermanned whaleboat and will join for free if a player's crew is less than 3 sailors at the beginning of their turn.
If a player has no sailors at the beginning of their turn, they can draw 2 sailors from the sailor deck. Otherwise, they draw 1.
Tom draws stub. Great luck! He also has 10 barrels of oil, his lay or payment from the previous hunt, and decides to hire a 4th sailor from the sailor deck. Up to 3 sailors can be hired per turn in this manner, at increasing costs of 10 barrels for the first sailor hired, 20 for the second, and 30 for the third. He draws flask. So awesome. Overjoyed with his crew and out of oil, Tom now takes his turn at the topmast and draws a card from the sea deck. Shoals. Terrible luck. His boat has run aground on unseen rocks, and Tom must discard 1 sailor. It's a tough call, but he decides to leave Flask and Stub together and discard Queequeg. Poor rover, will ye never have done with all this weary roving? Tom passes the measure to Jess. Jess has only Bildad, so she draws 1 sailor for free. She gets the French sailor. Not the best, but the price was right. Now, with 30 barrels, she too has the option of hiring more sailors. Jess could afford to hire 2 sailors from the sailor deck. However, the option is also available to spend a premium and rescue a sailor recently lost at sea. These costs are reversed, with the top sailor on the discard pile costing 30 barrels of oil, the next 20, and the last 10. Jess can't pass up on Queequeg and spends 30 barrels to rescue him. Now, ascending to the topmast, she flips a sea card and gets the chart. The player has unfurled Captain Ahab's sea chart and is able to plan the next few encounters on the Pequod's journey. This card allows them to plot the course of the ship for the next several days, drawing 4 sea cards, discarding 1, and placing the other 3 back on the deck in any order they wish. Jess has chosen to discard the Albatross, preventing the players from having to all discard their lowest strength sailor. But what has she left in store for her fellows? Caleb already has 3 sailors, so no men will join for free. Looking at the current crew, Caleb decides that what is needed is a dependable harpooner, and turns his gaze towards Queequeg. Besides hiring and rescuing sailors, players can also attempt to trade with their fellow players. As is the way at sea, agreements between sailors are governed by the sailors alone, meaning almost anything can be offered in trade. Caleb begins by offering 20 barrels of oil to Jess. No deal. 30 barrels? No way. Alright, fine. How about 30 barrels and the Manxman? How can you pass on a deal like that? In situations such as these, when a player's heart is set on a sailor and they are willing to pay any cost, they can attempt to bribe a sailor into their own crew. 1 bribe attempt is allowed per turn, and the oil cost is 20 times the target sailor's current strength. For Queequeg, a strength 2, that cost is 40 barrels. The sailor's current employer can choose to match the bribe themselves, if they are able, to retain the services of their sailor. Unfortunately, Jess cannot afford to pay the bribe, and Caleb successfully nabs Queequeg. This bribe is not paid to the player, but to the sailor directly, as it is Queequeg himself who receives the oil, the barrels are paid back into the pot as normal. Of course, Jess knows something that Caleb does not. Caleb flips his C card. Grog! A much-needed moment of merriment on the ship gets a little out of hand, and due to the confusion, all players must pass a random sailor to their left. The players take a moment to reflect on Caleb's luck. Caleb sadly passes the measure. What else does the sea hold for our crew? Jess may know what the next 2 days have in store, but beyond that, it is anyone's guess. For our next video, we'll explain the last key part of gameplay, the progression of the chapters and the eventual encounter with Moby Dick. Happy hunting!